Welcome to section 8.5, day 2, factoring by grouping. So here it says match the expression on the left to its greatest common factor on the right. This is just a real quick look at what we did yesterday for finding GCFs at the beginning of the lesson from yesterday. So we have 4x squared and 6x. Well, the lowest exponent of the variable is an x, so we just have to go through and see which one has an x in it. And then what is the largest number that divides out of 4 and 6 is 2. So our greatest common factor is 2x. We have 7x cubed minus 14x squared. We're going to look for the largest number that divides out of 7 and negative 14, which is 7. And we can also pull an x squared out, and that would be this one right here. We have 3x squared minus 12x. The largest number that goes out of both 3 and 12 is 3. And the lowest exponent on our x variable is x to the first, so we have 3x. And we have 18x squared minus 33x plus 12. You notice the third term does not have a variable in it, so the only thing we can pull out is a number, and the largest number that pulls out of all of them is just 3. And here we have a common grouping. They match, so that is a greatest common factor, which is 2x plus 1. That's a real quick synopsis for finding our GCFs of a polynomial. So most of today's lesson is just re-going over what we did yesterday, because factoring by grouping is a very important skill to have. We will need to use this again when we get to section 8.6. So here we go. What is the factored form of 8t cubed plus 14t squared plus 20t plus 35? Remember, our first step is to group the first two and the last two terms. And then we look for the common factor, the largest common factor between 8t cubed and 14t squared. First, look for the largest number between 8 and 14 that divides out evenly, and it's 2. Then we look at our common variable, and we take the lowest exponent, which is t squared. And if we divide these by 2t squareds, what do we get left? In parentheses, 8 divided by 2 is 4. T cubed over t squared is t. We got 14t squared over 2t squared, and we get 7. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and t squared over t squared goes to 1. So our next group, we look at 20t and 35. The largest number we can pull out of both is a positive 5. And then 20 divided by 5, or 20t divided by 5 is 4t. And 35 divided by 5 is 7. And then again, make sure that these match. They do, so they are a factor group. And again, if they don't match, it means either it's not factorable or you made a mistake with your GCF. We have 2t squared plus 5 is on the outside. They become the second factor group. And if you needed to, you could always multiply these back together and make sure you get back to the original polynomial. One thing we should look at whenever we factor anything is we should always look to see, before we even start grouping things, is there a GCF right away? Can we pull out a common factor from 6h to the 4th, 9h cubed, 12h squared, and 18h? And if you notice, they all have a variable of h. That means we can at least pull out an h. And then 6, 9, 12, and 18 are all multiples of 3, so we can divide them all by 3 or factor out a 3. So we can pull out a 3h before we do anything else. And we're left with, if we divide all these by 3h, there we go. If we divide by 3h, we will be able to get 6 divided by 3 is 2. H to the 4th over h is h cubed. Then we have 9h cubed over 3h. 9 divided by 3 is 3. H cubed over h is h squared. Then 12 divided by 3 is 4. H squared over h is h. And 18 over 3 is 6. And h over h goes to 1. So we are left with this. Then we will group, because we still have a 4-term polynomial. Now we'll do our grouping. First two terms, last two terms. And when we do this, we now have 3h. Still, don't forget to bring it with. In our first group, between 2h cubed and 3h squared, There is no number other than 1 we can divide out. And between h3, h to the third, and h squared, we can pull out an h squared. Leaving behind a 2h. Divide this by h squared, we're left with a 3. And then from the second group, we can divide out a 2 between the 4 and the 6. And there is no variable with the last term, so we have 2. We have 4h divided by 2, which is 2h. 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Again, we do this factor by grouping. We want to make sure our parentheses here match. And they do match. So we have our 3h still on the outside. We have our matching parentheses. I'll just write those next. And then what's on the outsides of our parentheses is that h squared plus 2, which is inside our bracket. So we have h squared plus 2. And this is my factored form. And again, if you would multiply this back together, we would get back to our beginning polynomial. All right, I want you guys to try this one. See if you can factor it. So pause your video and then see if you get the same thing I do. Just remember, when you do this, when you factor by grouping, that negative sign must go with the 4 when you do your groups. All right, we have 3np plus 15p. That's our first group. Second group is negative 4n minus 20. Make sure you put your little plus sign there between the two groups. The first, between 3 and 15, we can pull out a 3. And we have a common p between them. And if we divide this first group both terms by 3p, 3np over 3p, the 3 over 3 cancels to 1. We have an n still, the p over p cancels to 1. We have 15p over 3p, 15 divided by 3 is 5. And p over p is just 1. For our next grouping, make sure, since we have a negative 4n, we want to pull a negative factor out. And the largest number that goes between 4 and 20 is 4. Then we can divide out. We're going to divide out a negative 4. And we divide these by negative 4. Negative 4n over negative 4 is a positive n. Negative 20 over negative 4 is a positive 5. We now have parentheses that match. We want to make sure of that. And since they do, they're one of our factor groups. Then we're going to take in the other pieces, become our second factor group. 3p minus 4. And that is my factored form. 3p minus 4 times n plus 5. And if we were to multiply these together, we would get back to the 3np plus 15p minus 4n minus 20. So if you ever want to check your answers, just redistribute, use your FOIL method or whatever method you prefer, and remultiply them back together. All right, that is all for section 8.5 day 2. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.